Hello friends! Today we're going to explore the fascinating world of language and its various uses. We'll start by discussing informative language, expressive language, and directive language. After that, we'll dive into the concepts of connotations and denotations and the difference between them. We'll also cover intension and extension. So, let's get started with the usage of language. Alright, let's chat about how language works with logic. Basically, logic is all about thinking straight, and language is how we dress up our thoughts. We need to express our thoughts in words so we can analyze them properly and avoid messing up our reasoning. Language is essential for turning our raw thoughts into arguments we can actually discuss. When we dive into the uses of language and logic, we come across three main functions: informative, expressive, and directive. Informative language. This one is all about giving the lowdown, whether something's true or not, or just sharing info. Imagine you're just talking about your day or explaining something. That's using language to inform. Whether it's tossing out an opinion, reporting the news, or asking questions, you're providing information. This type is key for day-to-day chats where you exchange all sorts of facts and figures. Informative language function. This is all about just giving the facts or sharing information. When you use language this way, you're either confirming something is true or denying it, like stating a scientific fact or describing what happened at an event. It's used to explain or reason about things, like discussing what happened in a situation or why something went down a certain way. The key thing here is that these kinds of statements can be checked for truth. They're either true or false, although sometimes it's tough to know which. Example: the Amazon rainforest is the largest tropical rainforest. Explanations. The statement, "the Amazon rainforest is the largest tropical rainforest," serves as a factual claim often used in scientific and geographic contexts to underscore the Amazon's pivotal role in global ecological systems. It highlights the rainforest's significance in biodiversity, carbon storage, and environmental balance, making it a key point in discussions about conservation and climate change. This fact is verifiable through geographic data and is a staple in educational settings, where it provides a basis for understanding ecological dynamics and the importance of preserving such vital natural resources. However, the precision of this fact might vary with new scientific findings or changes in how rainforest boundaries are defined. Expressive language. This is when you're showing off how you feel. It's not so much about facts, but about vibes. Say you drop a yuck when you taste something gross. You're not really giving a news update, you're just expressing disgust. Expressive language is a big deal in stories and poems where the sound of words can paint a picture of emotions and settings. The flip side, called receptive language, is about getting the gist of these vibes when someone else is throwing them your way. Expressive language function. This one's about expressing or evoking feelings. Think of how poetry or novels work. They're really good at making you feel a certain way or showing you how the characters feel. There are two big parts here. One is making you feel emotions, and the other is expressing the speaker or writer's emotions. These kinds of statements aren't about true or false. For instance, when King Lear says, "Ripeness is all," he's expressing something deep, not stating a fact. This makes the whole discussion about the truth of emotional expressions pretty intriguing. Directive language. This one's about getting someone to do something. It's not really about true or false stuff. It's more command central, like when you tell someone, "turn off the light," or hint at them to move by saying, "you're standing where it says no loitering." You're basically nudging them to do something without making it an open choice. Directive language function. This is when language is used to get someone to do something. Commands and requests fall into this category. Like expressive statements, these aren't really about true or false either. It's more about action, either trying to get something done or stop it from happening. For example, if someone says "close the windows," they're giving a command. Or saying "you're smoking in a non-smoking area" might sound like a fact, but it's often used to tell someone to stop smoking there. Connotations and denotations. Connotations. Connotation is all about the vibes or feelings a word gives off beyond its dictionary definition, which is called its denotation. Think of it as the emotional or cultural baggage a word carries. This can be either positive or negative. For example, if someone is called strong-willed, it sounds pretty positive, like they're determined and steadfast. But call them pig-headed, and it feels negative, like they're annoyingly stubborn. Both phrases mean the same thing at the core, being stubborn, but they give off totally different vibes. The idea of connotation versus denotation can get a bit tricky because it's not just about what the word literally means, but also about all the feelings or ideas that come with it. In the world of logic and semantics, connotation is similar to something called intention. It's often compared to denotation, which is more about the broad category or literal meaning of a word. Think of it as the direct reference. For instance, the connotation of the word dog might bring to mind loyalty and companionship, even though its denotation is just a four-legged furry animal that barks. Here's a real-life example. Imagine your friend says, "This place is so cheap." Depending on their tone and context, cheap could have a positive connotation, like getting a great deal, or a negative one, suggesting poor quality. So the word cheap doesn't just refer to the low price, it also carries a hint about how the speaker feels about the price or the item they're buying. Denotations. Denotation is like the textbook definition of a word, what it strictly means without any emotional or cultural baggage. For example, when we say something is warm, we're literally talking about it having a high temperature. Denotation sticks to this basic, literal meaning. But words often carry extra vibes or feelings, known as connotations. So while warm literally refers to temperature, it can also make us think of things like calmness or coziness, like how you feel snuggled up in a comfy blanket, or it could even describe someone's personality, suggesting they are friendly and welcoming. These extra meanings are connotations, not part of the word's denotation. Denotation also matters in fields like semantics and philosophy of language, where they dig deep into the meanings of words. In math and computer science, figuring out the denotation of expressions helps in creating and understanding formal languages used in programming and algorithms. Essentially, they're trying to decode how natural language fits into computational formulas. Here's a real-life example. If you read a sign in a store window announcing a sale, the denotation, or literal meaning, is that items are being sold at reduced prices. However, the sign might make you think of saving money, feeling good about finding deals, or maybe even the chaos of crowded stores. These are all connotations, adding layers to the simple, straightforward meaning of sale. Difference between denotation and connotation. This table compares two important linguistic concepts, denotation and connotation. Let's break down what each part of the table means and how these concepts differ. Definition. Denotation. This is the basic dictionary definition of a word, the straightforward literal meaning. It's the meaning you would find if you looked up a word in a dictionary. Connotation. This refers to the feelings, associations, or emotions that a word invokes, which go beyond its literal meaning. These are not written in the dictionary, but are understood through cultural or personal context. Purpose. Denotation. The purpose of using denotative language is to communicate in a clear, direct, and precise way, ensuring that the message is understood universally, without ambiguity. Connotation. The use of connotative language is to evoke certain emotions or thoughts, suggest additional meanings, or bring up cultural or personal associations that enhance the depth of the communication. Communication. Denotation. The communication is focused on objective meaning, which is consistent and universally understood, regardless of personal feelings or cultural backgrounds. Connotation. This aspect of language is subjective and varies widely among different people or cultures, because it's influenced by personal experiences or societal norms. Example usage. Denotation. For the word dog, the denotation would simply be the species itself, known for being furry and four-legged. Connotation. The word dog might also carry positive connotations like loyalty and companionship, or negative ones like uncleanliness in certain cultural contexts, depending on how people feel about dogs or how dogs are perceived in different societies. Role in sentences. Denotation in straightforward statements like, "I am a student," student simply denotes someone who is attending school or university. Connotation. In a broader context like student life, the term student might bring to mind additional associations such as youth, a sense of freedom, the excitement of learning, or the stresses and financial challenges faced by students. Impact. Denotation. It's crucial for ensuring clarity and accuracy, especially in factual or informative contexts, where misunderstanding could lead to errors. Connotation. It enriches language, adding layers of meaning that make communication more vivid and nuanced. This is especially valuable in creative writing, advertising, and personal storytelling, where the emotional or cultural resonance of words can greatly influence how messages are perceived and received. Intention and extension. Intention. In logic, when we talk about intention and extension, we're dealing with how terms and concepts apply and what they actually mean. Intention is like the deep dive into what a term officially means. It's the definition that pops into your head when you think about what the term covers. For example, the intention of ship is something like a vehicle for traveling on water. On the other hand, extension is about where this definition is applied in the real world. It's all the actual examples that fit the term, like cargo ships, passenger ships, and battleships. The whole thing about intentional and extensional in statements is pretty interesting too. An intentional statement changes its truth based on how you say something, even if you're talking about the same thing. For instance, if we say, "Everyone who has read Huckleberry Finn knows that Mark Twain wrote it," and swap Mark Twain for the author of Cornpone Opinions, the vibe of the statement changes because not everyone might know that Mark Twain wrote that essay, even though it's the same guy. So, if we put in something that technically means the same, but isn't commonly recognized as such, it can mess with whether the statement feels true or not. This doesn't happen with all statements, just those tricky ones where the specific wording matters a lot because of the context or the less obvious connections between terms. These kinds of statements often involve words like knows, possible, or pleased, which sort of hint that we're dealing with an intentional setup. These words, or phrases like, "it is possible that," act like flags saying, hey, this statement might get a bit complicated depending on how you interpret these words. So let's say, Aristotle was pleased that he had a sister. If you change had a sister to had a female sibling, it sounds more clinical and less personal, which might not resonate the same way, even though it means the same thing. This switch can tweak the emotional or intuitive impact of the statement, showing how sneaky and sensitive language can be. Extension. An extensional statement is pretty straightforward. It means that you can swap out parts of the statement with other terms that mean the same thing, and the truth of the statement doesn't change. In simpler terms, it's like saying what you see is what you get with the words used. For example, if we look at the statement, Mark Twain wrote Huckleberry Finn, and you swap Mark Twain with Samuel Clements, since that's his real name, the statement still holds up. It's still true. This shows that the statement is extensional because the fact remains intact no matter how you refer to the guy. Now, let's break down another statement. Aristotle had a sister. If we change Aristotle to the tutor of Alexander the Great, or to the author of the prior analytics, it's still the same guy we're talking about, so the statement stays true. Similarly, if we swap had a sister for had a sibling whose body was capable of producing egg cells, or had a parent who had a female child, we're just getting more technical, but the essence of the statement doesn't change. So the key with extensional statements is that they're kind of like math equations with words. You can substitute terms with their equivalents, and the outcome remains constant. This is different from intentional statements, where how you say it can change the truth of the statement. In the real world, extensional statements are clear-cut and don't leave much room for interpretation based on how things are phrased. Increasing intention, decreasing extension. This is like getting more specific as you move along in a list. Each term you come across has more detailed attributes than the last, narrowing down the group it refers to. Think of it like zooming in with the camera. For example, start with animal. That's any living creature. Pretty broad, right? Move to mammal, and now you're just talking about animals that nurse their young and have fur, a smaller group. Go one step further to tiger, and you've zoomed into a specific type of big cat. Here, each term gets more specific and the group of things it applies to gets smaller. Example, animal, mammal, tiger. Animal. This is the broadest category we have here. When we say animal, we're including every kind of living creature that is part of the animal kingdom. This includes everything from insects, birds, and fish, to reptiles and mammals. It's a huge group with countless members, so it has the lowest intension, least amount of detail about each member, but the highest extension includes the most examples. Mammal. By narrowing down from animal to mammal, we're specifying a particular class within the animal kingdom. Mammals are warm-blooded vertebrates with hair or fur, and most mammal mothers nurse their young with milk. This group includes creatures like dogs, cats, elephants, and humans. Here, the intention increases because we're adding more specific attributes: warm-blooded, hair-fur, nurses young, and the extension decreases because we're excluding all animals that don't meet these criteria, like birds and reptiles. Tiger. At this most specific level, we're focusing on a single species. A tiger is a large, carnivorous mammal known for its distinctive orange and black striped coat. This term has the highest intention because it's very detailed, defining attributes specific to tigers only, and the lowest extension because it applies to one specific kind of animal. Decreasing intention, increasing extension. This is the opposite. You start specific and get broader with each step, encompassing a larger group each time. It's like zooming out with a camera. Take tiger, that's our specific starting point. Move out to mammal, and now you're including not just tigers, but also dogs, cats, elephants, and more, a much larger group. Go all the way out to animal, and you've got the biggest group yet, including all living creatures from insects to whales. So, increasing intention, more detail, fewer examples, is like tightening a zoom lens on a very specific scene, while decreasing intention, less detail, more examples, is like widening the lens to capture a vast landscape. Example: tiger. Mammal, animal. Tiger. This is our most specific category. When we talk about tigers, we're really zoomed in on a very specific kind of animal. Tigers are big cats known for their striped fur. Here the intention is high because we're including a lot of detailed attributes specific to tigers, but the extension is low because we're only talking about one type of animal. Mammal. Now let's zoom out a bit. Mammals include tigers, but also many other animals like dogs, cats, elephants, and humans. The intention decreases because we're using fewer specific attributes that apply across a broader group. All mammals share certain traits like having fur or hair and producing milk for their young, but these traits are less specific than those used to describe tigers alone. The extension increases because we're now including a much larger group of animals. Animal. Zoom out even further, and we get to the category of animal. This is our broadest category yet. It includes all mammals, but also birds, fish, reptiles, amphibians, and insects. The intention is at its lowest, because the shared attributes among all these creatures are very general, like being a living organism that moves. However, the extension is at its highest because this category covers all animals. Great job today, everyone. We've covered a lot of ground from the different uses of language, informative, expressive, and directive, to the concepts of connotations and denotations and the differences between them. We also explored intention and extension and how they change in specificity and scope. If you found this lesson helpful, please like the video, subscribe to the channel for more content, and leave a comment below with your thoughts or any questions you might have. Your feedback helps us improve and create better content for you. Thanks for joining, and see you next time.